wait, are you oh, okay, never mind. Okay. I
What?
Are you at your house in California or
Yeah, I am. I'm in the house,
oh
California.
my God, I can't believe you slept 7 AM. Is this like a normal daily routine?
I have a full
Oh, by the
day.
way, we're live. Yeah, so
No problem.
yeah.
I have a full day starting at 8, so that's kind of the only really hole I have.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so hi Nir, welcome to Adventure with Grace.
Hey, thank you. Great to have it. Be
Uh,
here.
okay, awesome. So to start the show, I would love for the audience to get to know you a little bit more. So, after like the party at your house, I like definitely research you. I feel like you're extremely accomplished in the security space. You started your career in Improva and quickly made it to like the VP of corporate strategy. And why don't we start there? Why don't we let the audience to get to know you a little bit more? Like, how did you arrive at Silicon Valley and what were the core lessons that you've learned early on in your career that kind of
Sure.
shaped you into who you are today?
Sure. Happy to. Originally from Israel, so that's kind of how I got into cyber by chance. I'm not part of this 8200 unit that everybody's from. I was in a different fighting unit in the army, but I got to Imperva while at college. I met the founder and CEO of Imperva, and I kind of joined him on that journey. Um, Techie by trade, so my first day at Imperva was right after my last exam in in college, and I started doing QA and engineering and stuff, and building product and testing the product. And um, I moved to the Silicon Valley, the Bay Area, when Imperva opened its corporate office. So I was kind of moving from Israel to the States to build the post sales organization. Um, and I did that for a couple of years. And then I moved back to Israel a couple of years later to run products for the company. So one of the other co-founders left, and I replaced him to kind of run products. And I did that for about 4 years or so. And then in Perva, we were filing our S1 to go public. And that's when I was tapped to kind of figure out how to grow the company under the public eye. So that's kind of how I did corp dev. So every time I was kind of moving back and forth, both physically between
Mm.
Israel and the Bay Area, but also moving between a lot of different positions. So I did many, many different things along the way at Imperva, which was great because it made me pretty knowledgeable and versatile when I kind of started Exabeam in 2013. I had a fair amount of experience of how to operate and grow a company.
I wonder, can you describe a little bit more about like, since like you were at the company for 10 years, when you joined, what were the job that you were doing, maybe like on the technical things or something? And then like later on you worked in like product management, market strategy and corp dev. And I wonder like throughout that journey, like what was the core day to day you were doing since it was like a startup and then it was chaotic. And I believe you said this on another podcast. It like basically they were comparing this with war, but like startup war is even like longer. Can you describe a little bit more about like what were the day to day like for running the business and like what were the things that you feel like worked well at this company then you took to start your own company?
Got it. Yeah, sure. So the day to day. So in the beginning, again, I was a young, you could say, kid in the beginning. So a job was kind of the first job was a QA job, was just testing software and running all kinds of manual tests on them, making sure that they're okay or not. You're in the beginning when I joined Imperva, that was like there were no customers. It's kind of pre-revenue. We're talking about a very, 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 very small organization. Um, so there's nothing besides the product. So you're just
Mhm.
building product and that, and you have beta testing and kind of customer testing and stuff like that. So that's kind of like what I did. Um, it wasn't as uh, it wasn't as kind of like a fog of war for Imperva
Mhm.
when it started, because when Imperva started, it's not like cyber today, where it's much more of a established market, a lot of competition, very noisy, fast moving markets. It took a while for Imperva to pick up on that journey. That's different than I would say when I started Exabeam. Kind of fast forwarding into 2013, the market is very, very different at that point. And that was a very quick, meteoric kind of like type of a climb. We started in 2013. I think 2015 was our first year selling, and I think we did like 5 million and change, and like 30 different customers, and it was very, very, very fast.
Mm.
And that is very fog of war. So you move from this vacuum of product and nothing in the beginning when you start a company. There's like nothing. There's just building product and designing product and working with your design partners to suddenly hitting market, and then there's just a lot of like fury.
I wanna double click on like, what were you guys selling at the point, and then how do you kind of like um actually like discover the client and then the client's needs, and like how does a sales cycle look like in the security space? From yeah. uh,
So in the so it's going to be different like between Imperva and Exabeam. So at Imperva, we sold web application security firewalls and database security firewalls, and nobody really knew what it was and what was needed when we started. It took a long time to get to sales, um, and then really the hockey stick effect happened when regulation started pushing the need for you to protect your applications.
Mhm,
It was PCI and Sarbanes-Oxley, and then those types of regulations, and kind of like, okay, everybody knew, and it started selling. So it was very evangelical sales in the beginning. Uh, Exabeam, when we built a security management solution, so that's kind of like this screens that you see in a security operations center, or one of that screen, we kind of
mhm,
connect all the different signals from everything that you've deployed in your organization, and trying to tell you kind of like uh, if there's any alerts or anything happening in your environment. And there it was different. We What we told folks is, look, your IT and your environments are very complicated, very difficult. You don't really understand what you're seeing. You don't even know what to ask for what looks weird or not doesn't look weird. We'll put this quote unquote magic brain, or kind of
mhm,
machine learning AI brain, and we're going to slap it on top of your data, and we're going to show you interesting things that
mm,
you haven't seen before. And that was kind of the proof was in the pudding to show.
mhm,
But it was a very, very simple proposition. We will show you what is suspicious and malicious without you asking.
mhm.
Uh, and so that was a very easy sell. Technology is very difficult, but the value proposition was very easy. We went to a customer, we said, hey, point us to your data lake. You're running Splunk or whatever that is, and we'll run on top of it and show you kind of quote unquote our findings.
I wonder, so like when you first started the product, was it the same as like when it become like what it is today? And how do you kind of like do the product improvement each time?
Yeah. Uh, so the product remained the same for a long time until the company had to rewrite everything for cloud native. So that completely changed. We had to throw the old tech and build the new tech from scratch. But the the strategy of the product hasn't changed. What we like, if you look at the mock-ups we created in the beginning to the product, it
Mhm,
was like one-to-one stayed on the same kind of track. There's good and bad that comes with that when you have like a home run on the first try and things are moving super, super, super quick. Um, it's that you incur a lot of tech debt, a
mhm.
ton of tech debt, and mistakes that you've made that now are cemented inside your architecture and your products and everything. Um, so we had a lot of that. We got so many customers in the beginning of selling that and we started building more and more and more features that we had a lot of tech debt and a lot of quality issues along the way. And it took us a long time to correct that and get that under control.
I wonder, so like I want to start with like a more general question and then like kind of comes down to it. Like, so I know that, like, looking at what you guys have on the website, you guys have like a lot of great clients, like Under Armour, or like just like a lot of like clients in different sectors in general, um, airline company and everything. So when you first started like selling your product to go to market, would you say like you would start with like a bigger brand, or would you go after like whoever will use your product? And how does the money flow in the security space that you feel like your product has like a good chance of like becoming like $1 billion company?
Yeah. So one is the ICP for Exabeam was mid and larger enterprises. So you
Mhm.
don't go to SMBs. They're not part of. We literally did not. We sell. I think the cutoff was when we started. We're not going after any company that has less than 2,000 employees, if I recall,
Mm.
kind of like in that range. And we did. You talked about Under Armour as an example. That was our first paying customer.
Oh, wow.
Like way back in the day. I think they bought in 2014. Um, but we in cyber, it is one of these unique markets where you are selling to serious enterprises out of the gate, and just there is a very big need for innovation for the buyers to combat new threats, be able to solve their solutions, that you are able as a new startup to sell to these marquee logos.
Mhm.
uh, and with regards to kind of addressable market or getting to building like $1 billion company, it's all a matter of TAM. How much money is spent in kind of the markets that you play in. And Exabeam was playing in the SIM space or security operations space, and that is a $3 to $4 billion market. So there's a lot
Mm.
of dollars in that space. So it's a given that you can build a long-term sustaining company with that.
I have another question on that. So like since you worked at another security company before, so I'm sure you had the credibility, but since like you're also a venture partner at SignalFire and like you also do a lot of angel investing and stuff, I wonder, so like for example, when you're looking at like a, let's call it like a younger people's company, they maybe like have like 2 year experience in like at a tech startup or tech company, maybe not in the security space, but they're like trying to tackling the security space, since like maybe just like add like AI to it. Like right now there's so many like voice fraud or like visual fraud about, like for example, a family member calling you like asking for money kind of stuff. So I wonder if like, since like I feel like that's a really popular space when I see a lot of startup are like building like the voice and visual fraud, like basically that kind of things. So I wonder, for that kind of things to work, what do you identify as like a core thing that you would even look at? Would it be the technology? Would it be the team? Like obviously everyone say the team, but like what does a team even mean? Do you feel like the veteran from like a big firm like you would have a better chance to win? Or like would you say like the young people freshly out of school but like leveraging AI, there's a lot of things that they could like quickly pick up on? Like what do you think would be the core skill, from your experience? After I listened to your other podcast, at the beginning I thought you were fully like a technical engineer, like a coding mode or like hacker mode, but like when I listen to the other podcast, I feel like you're a very business savvy person, like technical storyteller kind of person. And I wonder like how do you kind of exam if a startup would actually have the chops to like win a market like this? um,
Yeah, so I'll start with there's a difference between consumer plays to sell to a consumer, to sell to like a B2B app,
mhm,
and to sell to security. Security is like a niche. It's a niche inside enterprise, inside infrastructure. And so there's a lot of like gotchas and a lot of things that you kind of need to understand um, about the organization structures, about the buyers, about internal politics in these enterprises. So when you talk about, the team,
Mhm,
typically,
mhm,
the teams that will win are not straight out of college. They are not kind of these youngsters. They are folks that do have commercial expertise. Um, so if you look at a team, you're looking at kind of a whole team. So at least you kind of need two sides.
mhm.
You need one that is a very good product leader. It can also be a CEO in an organization. So somebody that understands how to build products, market them, position them, that type of a person, how to kind of understand the pain point and build a solution for them. And the second one is a technical founder that is able to to kind of build the technical chops of that org around that. So that's kind of like the minimum you need. Now it depends on the product they're trying to solve. Sometimes the tech chops are super, super, super difficult to do, and you need, kind of like a god, kind of technical god that can do it. And sometimes that's not the case. But for sure, if you look at all of the successful companies in cyber, you will see that their product founders were super strong or very, very, very strong. I think that makes a huge difference. So when you're looking at a team, you're just looking at the combination of that. And then you may have like a third co-founder join, but it'll be somewhere in that range.
Totally. Can you define like what does a good product leader look like? And do you identify yourself as like a product person, or are you more of like the go-to-market person? Like how do you kind of like identify what is your unfair advantage versus like your co-founder or like other people on your team?
Yeah, I am a product person. Am I a very, very strong product person? I'm okay. There's others that are way better than me that I've met along the years.
You're
Uh,
very humble.
no, you just get a chance to work with a lot of really, really good people, and you just beat them. And there's just a lot of really good talent out there. So what makes a good product person is, especially in the beginning, it is a 0 to 1. So you kind of need to be able to hone on a problem. You need to start pulling the thread on that problem to understand more depth, um, and uh, find the right opportunity to build a solution around that problem and how to stage that opportunity. Where do you start from? How do you grow? How do you this? And I think really good product leaders are able to stare at a problem and figure out kind of like how to build a solution around it. These are typically, this takes a long time, the process. So it's not that it's all in their head, but they're talking to a lot of people, they're talking to
Mhm.
customers, market experts, and so they're trying to get a point of view on the market, and then they understand how to build a solution around it. And there's a lot of examples of amazing products out there that have built along the years, um, that um, I'm amazed by. So I think what CrowdStrike have done in the endpoint space and how they were able to go after and displace the old school Symantec's um, and McAfee's of the world just by making the deployment super, super, super simple. That's a really good product that was built. Um, I think if you look at the modern now with AI and kind of data, I think companies like Glean that are building the ability to look at data and ask data and kind of knowledge, corporate knowledge, those are amazing products. They're being built. Um,
Totally. I wonder, okay, so since you are also investing in the space, where would you identify as things that are interesting to you?
in kind of like in cyber, a lot of things are interesting to me in cyber.
Oh,
Uh,
by the way, can you give us a like an overview on like let's say what does like the cybersecurity space look like? What consider what consider as like cybersecurity space, and how does the money flow in general? Like for example, you mentioned about like if when you started like your company, the it's a $3 to $4 billion market, and like how do you like when you were first like pitching to investor, let's call it like 10 years ago, what do you like how do you kind of like thought about like capturing the big chunk of the market, and like in general, I guess like how does the money flow in the industry? And then where do you feel like the opportunity that are like extremely exciting with like maybe some like big wave through like AI or some other like technical
sure.
um
So yeah, so cyber is a very large market. So you have I don't know, about 80 billion kind of like of a market. Um, and it falls into the money falls into a couple of different larger sub markets. One is what is known as the endpoint market. So that's kind of your old school antivirus, but now it's called endpoint protection, or that's where CrowdStrike plays and Sentinel One and all that. That's a very large market. The second one is what was called the network security market. Now it's called SASE or Secure Edge. That's where the firewalls and the Palo Alto and kind of like the likes started from, and that's a very large market. Um, the third market is the security operations market. So that's kind of being able to connect all the different systems together and help the um, the detection and response capability. So that's where Exabeam and the like
mhm,
play. That's about a couple of $1 billion market. There's the identity market, which is where you do user provisioning when you come on board to an enterprise, you're leaving on board, and what you can you access and how and that.
mhm.
That's a couple of $1 billion market, has a lot of services in it, but a large market. Um, so AI as a capability today, we're going to see new companies come up where AI is at its core. So there's a bit of a
Mhm.
difference where an existing company now starts putting AI um, in its products and kind of like bolting it on in different places. So you have a co-pilot and other capabilities and stuff like that versus a company that was built in the age of AI and embraces AI, and AI it's at its core of what it does. And they're trying to create a very different customer experience through that. It's kind of the difference between, I don't know, an enterprise content system and Notion, as an example, or like that. Like, it's very different of where the capabilities exist. So there's a lot of interesting companies that are being built trying to go after larger companies. These are different, I would say, entrepreneurs that have built, you know, first or second generation products in a market, and now are going to redo that for the age of AI.
Mhm.
Those are very interesting opportunities because those are opportunities where you can displace a very big market.
I wonder, so like I guess like when it comes to like selling to different companies, you like for example for you guys selling to like the 2000 and above company, what does a sales cycle look like? And a lot of the startups would tell you, "Hey, like we're in chat with a bank or we're in chat with like a company." How long or like how does the sales cycle kind of look like for um, you know, a successful security company to close a deal.
Yeah, it is pretty long. It's an enterprise sales cycle. So you are looking
Mhm.
at somewhere between 6 and 9 months in average
Mm,
for a deal. So, um, if I would look at the most successful companies, is it's also a matter of what is their average contract value, and companies that are able to close easily, mid six and, sometimes seven-figure deals, are the ones that are, going to be successful out of the gate, because it does take time to sell to an enterprise. It's like any other enterprise. So this is not a PLG, you just eat it up and that it's a very top-down type of a sell.
Um, so I wonder when they actually, so like how should they, so basically you're saying, I think we chat about like, in this space, in a certain space, like it really needs like the people with a lot of experiences, and within like the security space and the network kind of to go with it. Um, but when, I guess like when, since like there's a lot of people worked at like really top security company. I'm sure even for your company, there must be people coming out of your company to do another company. Um, how do you filter out like who would actually have a shot of like success versus like the people that are like coming from a tier one company that may not really have the chops for like starting a company.
Yeah, I think that there's a difference between a 0 to 1 and kind of like growing. It's not the same typecast. So I think you have a typecast of people that are love building something from nothing. And then you have the typecast of folks that like scaling something or, perfecting something. Um, but if I look at um, what would make them successful, is one is their ability to kind of think outside the box and take a problem and break it down into smaller problems. And the second one is, as you're saying, revenue is a very important, if especially in a very competitive market, for which is cyber, for every idea you think you have, which is your own idea, there's going to be 10 like you.
Mhm.
And it's how quickly do you move, and that does come a lot to go to market. So that's access to market, but it's also the customer experience with your product, is super important, and understanding what value proposition do you need to provide to your customer. What's the minimum viable product in order for you to sell, and how do you wow them? And I think that if you have a combination of a very good product with a quick time to value, and associated with that a high ACV, that's how companies move very quickly.
In terms of like AI related things, so I guess like when it comes to like the technology itself, where do you see as like the major change between like a AI driven security startup versus like a traditional security startup?
So when I'll talk about leveraging AI, not protecting AI. So because there's a lot of companies are going after protecting AI.
Mhm,
But if you're leveraging AI, AI works really good when you have a lot of data
mhm,
and a lot of need for automation. That's
mhm.
kind of like the combo of what you're looking for. So markets that, work with a lot of data and need a lot of automation, is where kind of AI can play a very big difference in that intersection. So I think in security operations center, there's a lot of data. In endpoint, there's a lot of data and automation. In cloud security, so there's a lot of places where you have an intersection of a tremendous amount of data and a big need to automate decisions within that.
I wonder, so like since like I feel like there is a lot of like for example, like AI, like, so I read an article about like, AI models are basically increasingly targeted by like the cyber attacks. So how does that like fell under this spectrum? So like that's, I guess that's the other part of AI. You were talking about leveraging AI to improve
Yeah.
your
So
workflow.
then there's protecting AI. Yeah. So now that you have protecting AI falls today in two buckets. The first bucket is protecting the interaction of your people, your employees, with a conversational model. Okay, so making sure that they're not sending any sensitive information outside, and all of that. That's one type. So that's just, think about, you probably use ChatGPT every day. I do. and kind of send stuff.
Mhm.
So when your organization, are you sending sensitive stuff to ChatGPT and making sure that none of that goes? So there's a whole element of, I would call, data leakage prevention and governance around access of your employees. And there's a lot of companies there.
Mhm.
Uh, so that, for me, that's part of what I would put under network security, or what was called CASB in the space. A lot of acronyms in cyber. The second is protecting your production AI. So you are now building, a capability in your product where it interacts with AI. And then there's all kinds of different attacks there. The biggest and well-known one is called prompt injection, which is you're playing with the prompt and you're trying to kind of make the prompt give you something, some sort of personal information or sensitive information. Um, and there's companies are being built around trying to protect your own models and AIs.
Mhm.
But this is all in the very, very early stage of infancy, I would say, that market, because there's, a lot of people talk about AI, but not a lot of organizations are broadly yet commercializing it in their platforms. And it's going to take a while for it to adopt. It'll take a while for that to have standards, and then have a very clear solution of how to protect those.
I wonder, so in that space, um, like, how do you kind of like see, can you describe maybe like a company that like you have invested in your space that you feel like you found exciting? Maybe from like how you meet the founder to eventually like you decide to pull the trigger to invest in, and then like how do you see how do you think about like liquidity or like exit out of that deal?
Yeah. So, okay. Well, we'll just add, you're not necessarily thinking about an exit kind of like in the beginning. It's like
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
just
of
thinking about,
course.
is there an opportunity here? Can I build something of
Mhm,
interest? And typically, if you build something that has value and you think that that's going to become a larger market, then um, de facto you're going to have liquidity options. So I would start with, so this is one of my companies. It's called Clutch, and I can
mhm,
talk about that. How do I get to it? So I go always to, first principles. The idea is, so when I started Exabeam, I'll go a little bit back in 2013. Um, Really, what was the problem in the market, which still is, but we've made big strides, is a lot of the attacks today are happening by compromising the workforce. So
mhm,
sending them phishing, social engineering, stuff like that, and stealing someone's identity, to access data. Now we're all well aware of it, and that's where Exabeam started from. And you just talked about, when you gave examples of identity attacks, you gave voice when somebody's calling you, or
mhm,
even Zoom bombing. I don't even know if I'm talking to
mhm,
Grace right now. No one's telling me this is Grace. This could be an AI of Grace, and Grace is still
mhm,
sleeping. Um, so there's companies that are being built to vet that. So but what has happened today, if we think about modern enterprises, we use a lot of microservices, and we use a lot of SaaS, and truly what we have is not people accessing systems, but other systems accessing systems. Even
mhm,
now, as you and I are chatting, this is getting broadcast, I think, on our LinkedIn's or that. That's all this system, which is called StreamYard, talking
mhm,
to LinkedIn. It's a system talking to a system,
mhm,
right? Because
mhm,
all these systems are intertwined. And what attackers have understood is that attack surface what's called the non-human identities. All these identities of systems talking to other systems. That's how there's hardly any control. By the way, when we registered here, and we connected our systems with LinkedIn, what it did is it generated what's called a token. It's like
mhm,
this shared key that StreamYard and LinkedIn know.
mhm,
If I, by the
mhm,
way, are able to get access to that key, and it's just a string, I can now access my LinkedIn, and I can do things on my LinkedIn. But it's more than that. It's like everything we do. It's like you build a product today, it works with Snowflake. let's say you're building a product. How does your production system talk to Snowflake? It's some sort of shared secret again. And if you look at a lot of the breaches that are happening recently, it's not the workforce, the people getting compromised, but it's these shared secrets, API keys, and all these different things that are getting compromised. And the attackers are not trying to impersonate a human, they're impersonating another system. And that's a huge attack surface. So that's kind of what Clutch is going after, of trying to protect against these types of new threats. So what will happen with it? I
Mhm.
don't know. There for sure is a large opportunity here because this is a new attack surface that is becoming more and more popular by our adversaries.
I wonder, can you describe a little bit more about like how do you meet the team? And then obviously you play a important role as like the founding investor. How do you think about, I guess, like, yeah, how did the team find you, or how do you find the team?
Yeah,
And how do you see
yeah,
it?
it's a great question. So I was hovering around this idea for about a year and a half. Like I was doing a lot of homework as I was looking at the next opportunity. And through a lot of my homework, and I spoke to a lot of people just to get a point of view. Because when you have an idea, it
Mhm,
takes a long time, at least for me, to get it down to a ground where I say, okay,
mhm,
there's something here. And that process takes time, a lot of time,
mhm,
and a lot of conversations, a ton. It's
mhm,
not like a eureka moment in a second. Say, okay, it takes
mhm, mhm,
time to kind of get there. And as I was looking into it, I stumbled in the team that was looking around that same area.
mhm,
Very, very strong team. Um, so it's kind of like through the premise of the idea is how I met the team.
mm,
And the team was a very seasoned team that have built companies before. And so, we spent time with each other and kind of said if there's a fit, and that's kind of how we got to it. So, and
mm.
then incorporated the company.
I wonder, since like you have founded a successful company before, and I wonder, why didn't you build this thing yourself?
Why not operate?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'll tell you kind of what I've learned about me as a person. Um, I love building companies. I don't necessarily love scaling companies. It's just not me. I'm not good at it really, nor do I enjoy it that much. Um, I really, if I, my passion is building companies, like having an idea and
Mhm,
it's kind of artistic and you start kind of like building your vision and doing it. But once you're an operator, for me, like I loved kind of what I did in Exabeam, and that was great. But at the end, it's a large company, and when you created it was nothing, and then at one point you were like 800 employees or whatever. It's not the same, um, and I just love building it. So if I kind of operating it would put me on the same trajectory
mhm,
of building something longer term, and I just would prefer to have the ability to build multiple companies at once, which is what I love doing. So kind of, I much more have purpose and fulfillment through that versus just doing one and scaling it.
mhm. I wonder, in terms of like the season team, were you kind of like hunting in some particular companies, or like would you be one of the people who have like, I don't know, secretly like a track who's I don't know, LinkedIn becomes sales coming out of like company XYZ? Or is there any kind of like is there a few security startup that are like famous for like, engineer coming out of a particular startup and then building amazing things? Or like, how do you kind of like source the high quality deals in general?
Um, so um, it's Israel and cyber. There's just a lot of talent.
Mhm,
So with the whole 8200 unit, and like it's just a bedrock for talent over there. So there's a lot of really good teams. and a lot of very good seasoned people and folks that have moved from Israel to here. And so um, you don't necessarily look at a one company. You just find, just amazing talent. And I
Mm,
think um, for cyber and in Israel, there's amazing talent. Just the talent is incredible. And now the question is there a good wholesome team? So it's not just about one person, but the team itself are really good. And is there a product founder fit that sits there? So it's not. I don't know about kind of deal flow. It's just that it happens, but I'm a very strong believer in karma and trying to help others, and just out of just trying to do good, and through that, good things happen. So I don't know. I get a lot of deal flow through
mhm.
that. It's kind of how that works.
How do you kind of like, select this one company versus like, I'm sure there's like tons of people coming out of these, like, as you mentioned, there's like a really big like bunch of talent in Israel. Like, how do you kind of like select this particular team? And you mentioned about like, obviously the team is like pretty wholesome. It's like, a,
Yeah. So it has to be. One is kind of like what I do mostly is like I'm still kind of meeting teams in the ideation phase. So we're kind of like super, 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 super early. So it has to be that the area of the ideation I found interesting, and I really love the team. And I feel that
Mhm.
you can build a large company here around that vicinity of an idea. Um, so that's kind of how it goes um, for
what
me.
would- what would you say are like making Israel so successful to create these like kind of like security talents?
A lot of it is the army and then the market. So you have it's like uh, it's a very well-oiled machine that knows how to find target. I'm talking about the army, how to find talent and build that talent and give it really great um, uh, tools and stretch the talent. Um, and I think for better or worse, it's just kind of like the result of what the Israeli army did. Just created a tremendous amount of a vibrant innovation center. And then these people come out where they're really young still, they're in their early 20s, but they have leadership already under their belt. They have um, a fair amount of technical knowledge under their belt. They're super inquisitive and hungry. And now I think the best ones go and spend a couple of years in a kind of commercial environment, learning how not to do it in an army, but how to do it to sell to other enterprises, and how do commercial products look like. And then they have the itch to go and try to build something themselves.
I wonder what does a build talent mode look like? You mentioned about like they like the army built talent, and then there's like tools, and they also like
Yeah.
structure talents. What does a, I guess, like quote unquote training program look like?
I
Would
think
it be like, oh, here's a Stanford Online University, like learn this, or like how does it work in general?
Yeah. So it's very different. It is not like an Ivy League. It's not what they look for. So what I've seen, and again, I'm not part of this unit, so but what I've seen and how I'm told that these things work is you look for highly intellectual people,
Mhm.
highly inquisitive people, and you look for people that think outside the box. Okay. And the way you do it is just like a lot of different tests, tons of them, and a lot of interviews. And it is a system that is well funded that goes and hunts these kids when they're in high school and kind of marks them.
Mm,
Uh, it's a well-oiled machine. So I think that if you look at if let's take a Stanford as an example because it's here, they just get a lot of applicants and they sit and they look at the applicants and what's special about the applicants, and that is not how it works. It's exactly the opposite. It was as if Stanford would go and hunt for applicants.
mm. It sounds
That's kind
like
of
the
what
Teal Fellowship-ish.
it could be, but I don't know.
Mm,
But it's a very concentrated outbound effort to be able to kind of like, and you go through very, very rigorous testing. You're not accepted by your GPA plus your after school curriculum. But it's not like that at all. Nobody cares about any of that. They don't care about your grade. They don't care about any of that. They just care how smart and how outside the box you can think.
that's really interesting. So I guess like after they find these people, I guess what does outside of the box even mean? Like how do you even judge
Ooh,
if these people
these
would,
are very so there's a lot very criminal thinking. So you're finding people that have a very criminal mind of how to hack things,
got
how
it.
to break things, how to do it. It's the talent you're looking for. Now you're looking for these beasts, and now it's about taming these beasts. Um,
Yeah, how do you
so
tame the beast?
I know
I'm sorry.
you do. It's like a system, but it's like um, it's what you find. How do it's like how do you tame the beast? You just put it in control. It's like you give it interesting things to break, and they like doing that.
Um, I wonder, so like I think like finding the raw talent and then like building the, help like finding these like really thinking outside of the box thinkers and then kind of like put them together. Obviously, that's like one thing. The other thing is like in terms of like for another thing that really I found fascinating is like people from Israel would sell it to the world. Like they're able to like sell to a lot of these like Fortune 500, I call it, like without like any connections. Like how does that happen? So
Yeah,
obviously they're outside the box thinker, but like is there like a training program for people to, or like I guess number one, like what does the environment have to be like for them to like um you know sell to these like companies versus like just like build like a really cool product and stuff.
yeah. So there's two elements of one is the commercial nature. So that's kind of why we said teams. Teams that come out of the army directly are not good teams, typically. Okay, they need maybe you can have one, but you need people that have commercial experience. It is super important because you're not what you build for an army is not what you build for a commercial enterprise. The second is because so that's kind of the product fit that you're building. The second is you need access to market, right? You need to be able to have very early conversations while you're still ideating with top chief information security officers of these your ICP. And that's what a lot of venture does is it has large network of chief information security officers that they work with to be able to validate ideas, pitch ideas to hone in into the product market fit. And that's how it happens very quickly. So we were here, you were when we were at my house, was for a teammate event. They just have teammate right now as we speak are having their CISO summit village where they
Mm.
have I think about 150 different CISOs or 200 CISOs attend. Um, and they have access to that network and through that network their companies when they have an idea or thinking they're working with their CISOs to try to kind of validate the idea and then find early adopters that are willing to um, to purchase kind of these early stage solutions. So that's kind of how it happens. It's just a lot of it is through the venture capital that is connecting between the teams and the potential buyers.
Um, I wonder, so like since like you're also a part of like you're a venture partner at a VC firm, how do you like I guess like how often do people assign their portfolio companies to the CISOs? Or like, because let's say if I know like five CISOs of like top five companies or something, and then if I'm sending like six startup per day, like they may be like not taking the call anymore. So how do you, what does the frequency look like? Or like how do you like what like even selling to the CISOs, like after let's say a quick conversation at a party with a CISO, like how do we like follow up, or like how does the conversation actually happen? Is there like a person, let's call it like a more like junior level person on the team that like the people would like have to sell it to? Or like does it just like have to be the CISO have like the go ahead of like talking the team?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So no, I think that so a couple of questions. So one is, yeah, you can't burn these people because they have a day job,
Mhm,
and they like staying in touch with the market and seeing new ideas and directions. So that's kind of
mhm,
why they do it. But um, no, you can't do it more than like once a month with the CISO. That's a lot of their time.
mhm,
They're busy individuals, so they don't have a lot of time for it. But with regards to selling, so the CISO owns the budget, but not the
mhm,
decision. The decision is made by the teams. So when you have a new company that is pitching to an enterprise, it will meet with the CISO, but very quickly meet with the team. And there's going to be a champion on the team, which is going to be a couple of notches below the CISO, that is going to be the one that you know to be a yay or nay, and then the right, it's going to be a team, could be
mhm,
more than one person, and then the decision is made, and the funding needs to happen through the CISO.
mhm.
But
um
yeah.
I oh wait, what were you gonna say?
No, it's just it's kind of like it is a group decision, and the CISO is there. Um, typically, I don't see that often where a CISO is going to override the team's decision. It's whatever they decided to do that they'll go forward with.
Totally. I guess like when it comes to like, identifying the companies, as you mentioned, like the Israel approach, which is like, the Israel army have like a really great bench of talent. Um, I guess like and because since like we live in Silicon Valley now, like what would be the like Silicon Valley kind of equivalent opportunity? And as for like the younger talent, or I guess like the people who are building in the security space, but they're just generally without a lot of like they're not seasoned professionals. What are the opportunities for them? And if you're building out a career in the security space and investing, like without, you know, being like yourself who is coming out of like a top security company and then build a top security company, where do you identify the opportunity for younger people? So I feel like a lot of people looking at the AI space because of like it's a more like it's still like very fast growing, and then there's a lot of problem to be solved. Like I guess like how do you identify the opportunities for the more junior people in the space in general?
Yeah, I think that one is people need to be inquisitive.
Mhm,
So I don't think that when you come out of the university or something, your first goal needs to be, I want to go and build a new company now.
mhm,
I think your goal needs to be, I want to go and learn. I want to I want to get exposed. And maybe I'm just looking at me. I never knew what I wanted to do. I just kind of like went with the flow, and I grew within, and I was very inquisitive, and I wanted to learn more and more and more. And that's kind of how I got to it.
mhm,
It's not that I set kind of a goal and I was running after the goal with that. I think that they need to go and work for companies. I think working for startups don't have to necessarily be successful or not, but the ability for them to do many things and get exposed is really good. The second is finding mentors, people that are ahead of them in their career that they want to aspire to be to and just learn from and kind of keep close to. So I don't think it's not about did you work for a successful company, is did you do interesting things? Did you build interesting things? Um, and did you gather experience, and then continue to do that? So that's what I would suggest. So I don't think that it's that important if you're going to company X, Y, or Z. Um, for sure, I would say if you want to learn a lot, don't necessarily go to a large organization where you're just going to be a small cog in a very large machine. Go to a small company where you can do a lot of things and learn and get exposed to a lot of things. Then you also have opportunities to grow. Um, so that's kind of my 2 cents.
I wonder when it comes to picking the small company to join, how do you kind of join the the ones that actually have legs to like, go a little bit further than like, if a startup will like just fail in like 2 years?
But you're a young person at that point. You'll find another job if it fails. It's not that big of an idea of a problem. It's at least you got a really good experience in what you did in those 2 years. You're not, it's, this is not like a Catholic wedding when you pick your first job or something like that. It's just kind of like you're going to it and you're going to learn. You may be lucky, and you're lucky. If you're looking for a startup that has a higher probability of success, look for folks who have second time founders that have done something. People that have shown kind of capabilities. But that's kind of like it. There's still a probability it'll fail, and that's okay. It's failure is part of learning, and you're just an employee trying to learn and grow, and that's fine. Through that you've learned a lot, and you can understand, are you ready to do it by yourself, or do you want to kind of go and find another company to learn some more?
Okay, so we're at the last part of the interview. I want to be mindful of time. I know you have something at 8. Um, I want to end with like a 1-minute fire round for you.
Go
Okay.
for it.
First question, what's your favorite book?
Book.
Yeah.
The Hard Things About Hard Things.
What does your information diet look like in the security space?
My information what?
Information diet. Like, what do you read? Is there like a newsletter you subscribe to, or do you read the New
Yeah,
York Times?
so it's a lot, but I don't necessarily read a lot of security stuff alone, a lot of business too. So I think The Information is a great publication.
Who would you invite to your dinner party?
All my friends.
Who made the biggest impact in your career?
My mentor, a guy named Shlomo Kramer.
Where can we find you outside of work?
Ooh, flying planes.
Oh, anyway, so that sounds like a really fun hobby. Anyway, Nir, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Chris.
Let me quickly, 1 second, let me